Cortez for
Thank you.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I just have to commend Congressman Connolly for his strong performance. And he took my reference to the jungle that I wanted to discuss today as well. But, you know, it's really just astonishing to me that we are having a hearing today about regulations, not a specific regulation, just regulations. Are they good? Should they exist? Let's dig into it. We long know that regulations are written in blood. That's very often what is communicated by people, by communities, by labor, by workers, by many more. And even now, you know, hearing a mockery of cheese, right? You have Republicans saying, oh, look at how tightly regulated our government is. We even regulate cheese. Well, pregnant women cannot eat all forms of dairy because this is a food that contains bacterial growths, and it poses risks. But perhaps if the other side of the aisle had more fluency and had more knowledge of a woman's body, perhaps they would suffer less in this policy making. Let's look at other current regulatory rollbacks the Republican Party is currently trying to pursue. Let's talk about airlines. Right now, we are seeing that lawmakers and Republicans are currently trying to push rollbacks on airline regulations. This has come with the forceful pushback from the Pilots Association, as well as communities that have suffered and who have lost families on this. But let's dive in. What we are seeing right now is Republicans trying to roll back a rule on the number of hours that pilots must require in order to train, in order to be licensed. And Ms. Katzen, are you familiar at all with the Federal Aviation Administration's 1,500-hour rule?
Very lightly, but yes, I'm aware of its requirements.
This rule requires a pilot in training to have a minimum of 1,500 hours of flight time before flying a commercial plane. Seems pretty reasonable to me. If you're dealing with thousands of people and transporting thousands of people and commanding an airplane, seems like you should have pretty thorough training. This rule was enacted not because of some bureaucrat having an idea somewhere, but it was enacted as in 2010 following the Colgan airplane crash that tragically killed 50 people near Buffalo, New York. Now, once the rule was mandated by Congress, FAA implemented the law. And we're hearing the same arguments from the other side of the aisle saying these regulations are too onerous, that it's too much of an imposition. But these families have paid the price. They have paid the price. When we see these regulations, and we have heard it themselves, including from the president of the Pilots Association, saying these regulations are written in blood. Food regulations. This committee has overseen PFAS poisoning. Communities that are often low income, that don't have anyone to protect them. Rural, urban, inner city, wherever. They are poisoned when they are not protected, and that is the actual term. People discuss the term regulation. What these are protections for people, often who have no one else to protect them, who do not have a corporate legal team to protect them, who have endured loss, who have endured disease, fertilities, cancers. This is why we have regulations. Ms. Katzen, from your experience and expertise, even though a rule is mandated by Congress, for a rule like this to be implemented, it would still have to go through an extensive process, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And a rule like this would go through an extensive process, oftentimes to ensure safety for people, right?
Correct. And the input of those on the ground who may know more than those who are drafting the rules. So it's an informed process.
And unsurprising to no one, this regulation had a massive impact on fatalities with the pilot with the pilot hour requirement, training hour requirement. From 1990 to 2010, the FAA counted 1,720 fatalities involving passenger and cargo flights. Once the rule was finally implemented, from 2011 to 2021, the FAA counted only 14 fatalities, 14. Only 14 fatalities after implementing this rule, when the direct years prior to that, we saw 1,720 Americans dead. And yet we're here discussing rolling back a regulatory state, not even pointing out a specific area. Not even a specific area. I mean, what are we here for? I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back, but the purpose of the committee hearing is to talk about many different regulations. And I'm amused that the gentlelady is concerned about raising the age, the regulation that limits the age for pilots when there's a shortage of pilots, but they're okay with a President of the United States who's more than 20 years older than the minimum age.
Mr. Chairman, since you're referring to me, it's not age, it's training hour time. The number of hours that an individual is training, not the age.
Well, part of the regulation's the age as well. Chair recognizes Mr. Armstrong.